Play.
Very good evening, everybody watching. Tom Grant here, and it is the eve of the final Grand Slam of the year. Yes, it's US Open Eve. I'm kindly joined by Damien Kuss. Damien, how are you doing? How are you feeling tonight?
I'm fine today. This is definitely a very slow Sunday compared to most Sundays. All the challengers were finished on Saturday. Winston-Salem and Cleveland were finished on Saturday. So basically, it's the day before the slam. So little break. But of course, there's a lot of recording. There's a lot of analyzing. There's a lot of podcasting to do. So yeah let's talk about stuff.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. And just let me ask you then: do you do anything? I don't know. Is there any sort of Damien tradition or something you do on the eve of a Grand Slam to get you ready for the next fortnight?
I don't think so. Like when it comes to the US Open, we talked about this before the recording, getting my sleep schedule to be a bit different is definitely a tradition. It's not really for every slam. I don't have to do it for the European ones. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, this is like the third recording I've done today, so I guess there wasn't really that much time to just think of anything else. So basically just that.
Good. And you're excited, obviously, for the next 14 days. It's going to be a kind of festival of tennis, really. Have you been taking in any of Fan Week at all? Any of the content that's been coming out of New York?
Yeah, I mean, I've already watched so much of the qualifying, and I'm probably mostly excited for the first week. This is where the magic happens, according to me. The second week is just a little boring, but there's more challengers, there's more stuff. Obviously, it's always extremely exciting, and I think especially the first week and the qualifying. These are my favorite parts. So half of it has already gone, has already been gone. But honestly, obviously, super excited for 11 a.m. US Open time tomorrow and the start of play, and the first 2 days, which are so just always so messy and chaotic when you have like 15 matches that you can watch and you want to watch like 10 of them, but you just can't.
No, I agree with you. I think we had a chat on our previous podcast stream, and I said, the first couple of days for me are the best part of the slam. It's just because there's that excitement, the potential, everybody's playing. And we'll come back to the qualifiers. We'll look into the qualifiers who you think have done, been the player of the week in a couple of minutes. But I think a couple of places to start then. Obviously, there was the event in Winston-Salem won by Sebastian Baez. We'll come on to that in a second. But, news coming out over the last couple of days. Mikael Ymer announced on his social media channels that he was retiring. Of course, in July, he was banned from the sport for 18 months because he failed to show up for 3 out of competition tests in 12 months. And his tweet, he read out, "Hey guys, I've decided to retire from professional tennis. Thank you all for the amazing memories. What a ride it's been. I wish all my colleagues well going forward in competition. God is great always." Obviously, a lot shorter tweet than, at the actual time of the ban in July. He was all over that. I think the tweets were about 4 or 5 threads long. Just your thoughts on that then, Damien, kick us off with that, your thoughts on his retirement.
I mean, yeah, it was definitely surprising. I don't know if he's actually going to go through with it. Maybe this is something that, just did in the heat of the moment. And then in 18 months or 17 months by now, I guess, maybe he's just going to be back. Who knows? But I kind of get what he means. Like 18 months is really a huge chunk of your tennis career. It's going to be very hard for him to stay motivated enough to just keep himself in shape, keep practicing while he actually can't play. Then there's also that factor that he himself does not believe he did anything wrong. Because of that whole mess. I'm not sure what the story was with the first two. Like there, he probably did something wrong, but it really seems like neither him nor his agent really could have done anything differently in that third case. So yeah, along with that, he's just probably really frustrated at the moment. yeah, of course it would be a bit of a shame to see a career end like this, at
Yeah.
20, how many, 25, 26,
24 he is at the moment.
24 years old. Yeah, so he's gonna be 26 when he's back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Currently
or
ranked
I mean,
80, and he's been as high as
or he's
50.
not gonna be back. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, do you think there's any element of, more or less, maybe two fingers up to the governing bodies? I think, if I'm right in saying, the ITF actually went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, appealing the fact that he didn't potentially get a ban. Do you think there's an element of that at all? Him just basically saying, like, screw you guys, I don't really want to kind of be associated with you guys anymore.
Yeah, I guess mostly he just probably is just frustrated at how this all happened. Is he also angry at the governing bodies? For sure. Like in his previous statement, there was that whole thing with basically some tribunal at first acquitting him, then
Yeah,
actually another independent thing actually deciding that all of this doesn't matter. So there's definitely some sort of feeling there. And yeah, I just feel like in general they kind of made an example of him, because 18 months for this,
yeah,
that's incredibly harsh. Like
yeah,
there's dopers who got less.
yeah,
So I kind of think that they just had an opportunity to punish yeah, just a very well-known player for this, which rarely happens. You don't really remember stuff like this. So someone actually getting that third strike, missing that third out of competition test, and him being like a very popular guy. So yeah, I think they kind of made an example of him. And well, of course, I'm not excusing him for
yeah,
what he did. Right, 18 months definitely seemed kind of harsh.
yeah, yeah. And just in your opinion, then, and hello, Elena. How you doing? And Sean and Matthew and Nurlan, of course. In your opinion, then, will you ever see Mikael Ymer back on a tennis court?
Seems pretty likely, I guess, that he's gonna come back. Like, I just don't really believe that he's gonna be out like this. I don't know.
Yeah,
18 months it takes a lot of strength, but it's not like the door is closed. Especially these days, it just seems like everyone is coming back after their retirement.
yeah.
We just see so many players doing
Retirement doesn't
this,
mean
and
retirement, does it anymore? It's,
yeah,
it's, it's like the boxers of old. How many times the boxers retire and then they come back?
yeah, for that
Tennis is
one
the new.
last fight, and then that
Exactly.
happens in tennis right now as well. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I feel like we'll see him somewhere, but at the same time, he kind of had some weird interactions with, like, the Swedish
Of
organization and like
course.
the
Yeah.
Bostad organizers, and in general it just didn't seem like he was that much of a fan of the game itself.
Hmm.
So maybe, but what else is he gonna be doing, right? Like, he
Yeah.
is 24, he's gonna be 26 when the ban is over, and what's he gonna do in life? I don't know. So I feel like it's actually more likely that we're going to see him at some point than not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we might even end up in a pickleball court somewhere. You never know. Speaking of
With Jack Sock, yeah.
well, that was my segue. Speaking of pickleball, Jack Sock, of course, retiring today. And am I right in reading he's going to become a professional pickleball player? Is that right?
Yeah. Uh, Honestly, I mean, Jack Sock has just had such a weird career since like 2017, 18. He had years when he was barely playing, right? So many tournaments when he just seemed like he didn't have any interest in this. Probably could have had like a fantastic doubles career if he just focused on it. He never did. Yeah, I thought this year, honestly, when there was around April, when there was that USDA wildcard challenge, and like
Yeah.
green clay has always been great conditions for him. So I thought that maybe he was gonna actually try to get that French Open wildcard. Turned out that he didn't really, like, he had some decent matches in Houston maybe around the time, but then he never even never really showed up at these green clay challenges in the States. So that's where I kind of saw that, okay, so he's like not serious about this, because if he was, he would have been there. He would have been trying to get that Paris wildcard. Of course, he was in the second week in Paris in 2020, 2015. And so yeah, I guess it doesn't come as that much of a surprise. But of course, the guy was just 30, and if he wanted to, he still had that doubles career.
Yeah.
Excited to watch Isner Sog again, and for the last time, both guys
Yeah.
retiring, and yeah, just see what they can do in doubles, because they've obviously won like what, ATP thousands together. I'm not sure how many, but yeah.
Yeah. And then speaking of John Isner, of course, a polarizing figure, some might say, in terms of, tweets of the past, etc. Not everyone's cup of tea, I think that's fair to say. But, thoughts on John Isner retiring. I was listening to something somewhere. I need to remember where I'm listening to these things. But somebody mentioned, John Isner's actually done quite a lot for the sport of tennis, in terms of changes to the game to try and prevent such matches as the Wimbledon Mahmood 70-68 match. That's why we have a final set tiebreak, a sudden death tiebreak now. So yes, thoughts on John Isner and him saying goodbye to the sport.
Yeah, he definitely has an incredible legacy. Things like Isner Mahmood at that match, and then the changes that came after. It's not something that he was planning to do, right? But it's something that we'll remember. Of course, obviously he is the like record holder in terms of aces on the ATP tour, and like many other things.
What is that number again? Is it like, what is it, 18,000?
14,000?
Right?
I think it's over 14. At least it was. Maybe he got it to 15. I'm not sure. Definitely
sure.
4 years after like Andy Roddick, he was the most. He was just the highest ranked American, and he definitely like led the development of tennis in the country. So. In terms of what you said about like being controversial, was his style the most fun to watch? Most of the time, probably not. I guess I was always a bit more tolerant with this. And also like political views, I just always thought that it really shouldn't be that big a deal. I just don't really understand why people can't just listen to each other and respect each other's opinions. And John Isner still seemed like a very nice guy, and whether you agree with him politically, maybe sometimes he said things that were kind of just not tolerant or something, but we definitely have a lot of examples of him doing the right thing as well. And I mean, I think should be remembered for that, and not really for having right-wing political convictions, which right now seems to be considered like something wrong in the world, which
Well, I mean, I remember actually, I think he beat Andy Murray, was it last year at Wimbledon, and him talking, after the match to centre court, and I just, he came across as actually a really nice guy. It's the first time I'd actually heard him speak, and, he just seemed like a kind of down-to-earth, decent guy. So, I think you're right. I think he's left, his mark on the game, and, people will sometimes on a clay court, he could be all right, in terms of at Wimbledon, he was obviously really, really strong with his serve, and just kind of nicking the odd win here and there. Okay, sticking with the current tennis then, and the North American hard court swing, of course, was in North Carolina at the Winston-Salem, and we started at the top of the show. Sebastian Baez coming through against Yuri Lehechka. Got to be honest, Damien, going into last night and seeing that matchup, I know that Baez actually had a 1-0 record going into that match, but for me, I mean, I really like Yuri Lehechka. Of course, was it the Next Gen Finals last year, and got to the quarters of the Aussie Open. I watched him against Andy Murray earlier in the year as well. I really like Yuri Lehechka. I thought, for me, Lehechka was probably going to win that one, but Baez is a man on form right now. 10 match winning streak now. Just can Baez do anything at this US Open?
I mean, he's playing Coric again. He's just beaten him, but of course that doesn't really mean that much.
No.
I guess we can look at it really in many ways, because, well, he was also like 6-4, 4-2 up against Coric in that match in Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And then, that's when it actually got tricky. So he could have won it more, maybe easily. I don't know. It still feels like a pretty 50-50-ish match at this point in time, because, well, we've just seen it go like this. He definitely just has a lot of confidence right now, and it's also like kind of good to see him pick up a title on hard courts, because, well, he's had some terrible streaks on it.
Yeah.
Even like very recently, right? He had like, I don't know what, one win in the last 18 or something like that. There was a point in time even when he had this sort of a streak overall on any surface,
Yeah.
and on hard courts as well, of course, specifically. So definitely changing the perception of people in a way here. And yeah, the free ATP 250 titles in a year is just amazing, regardless of really what you're doing anywhere else. Can he make it deep? I don't know. Like, if he beats Chorich, he very easily could make the third round. Beating Medvedev seems impossible, so he would probably need to just need the Russian to get eliminated earlier. But if he
Yeah.
beats Chorich, it's not going to be easy, but it's not like his third round appearance would be a shock at this point. And yeah, he's just beaten Chorich, which maybe just gives him some even more confidence to a guy who doesn't really need it, because he has all the confidence in the world right now.
Yeah, playing well. I think that was a second win in a row, second event win in a row. Did he win Kitzbühel, didn't he?
Kitzbühel, yeah.
Kitzbühel, yeah. And yeah, he beat Jiří Lehečka 6-4, 6-3. Catching up in the highlights afterwards, I think Lehečka had actually hit first. He had a chance as well to consolidate the break. He was 3-1 up, had a chance to go 4-1. Baez, he's a scrapper, he's a fighter. Fought back, broke back straight away. And then Lehečka again had 4 break points when he was serving for it at 5-4. And I just, looking at the highlights, you could tell that the matchup was so close that it really, really hinged on that first set. And the fact that Baez got it, it made all the difference. Sorry, no, go on.
No. Lehečka was definitely the favorite going into that one. I agree with you. That head-to-head win that you mentioned was, of course, on clay in Davis Cup in Buenos Aires, so quite different conditions here. Lehečka still seeking his first ATP title, and definitely a bit of a bummer for him to lose this, as I think against Baez he would have felt like he was the guy who should be winning the match.
Yeah.
On this surface,
And our good friend Vanch had tweeted earlier, I don't know if you saw this, that Baez has now won more ATP titles in 2023 than anyone not named Alcaraz, Djokovic, or Daniil Medvedev. Some start that in terms of Baez, as producer John has just fired up there. He also becomes the first Argentine to win 3 or more tour level titles in a single season since Juan Martín del Potro in 2013. He won 4. So yeah, you've mentioned Baez and the form that he's in. Lehečka got to the final because of a walkover against Korda. Korda pulled out just ahead of it. But Lehečka then, as I said to you, quite an impressive player for me, especially at the first part of the season. He loves a hard court, this guy. I think I was looking earlier on, is he starting against Karatsev tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tough match, but it's a winnable match for me. So just thoughts on Lehečka then in terms of his development and, where you see him right now in the game?
Yeah, there was this part. There was definitely this point at the beginning of the season when he seemed like a top 10 player, maybe, or like borderline top 10. Yeah. It's not there anymore, definitely not. But he has definitely made improvements. All the time last year, I was like screaming about him potentially just because he's like he doesn't have like maybe overwhelming power of the ground, but he has great timing, and I just always thought that getting to the net more would be fantastic for him. He did just that. He also improved the serve, which is clearly something that he can be getting more out of. And just his whole, like, he always had good forward instincts, but like his whole transition game, net play got a lot more efficient. And I think that's sort of how he's done, and he's also like a lot more consistent this year compared to the previous seasons, which is hard with this style. And I think that he has definitely showed something new to us this year. And while he's not in that sort of early season form, maybe if he beats Murray in Doha, maybe he would have been even bigger, right? Because
I remember that match. Was he not serving for it, or he had a few match points or something?
5 match points, I think. So this definitely left some scars. I don't know. Maybe this would be different as well. But of course, we're not greedy. He is still doing excellent this season. He has just made his first ATP final. If we're not counting the next gen finals at the end of 2022.
Yeah.
And yeah, just awesome progress. And I think top 50 for years is something that he definitely should have. And yeah, with anything else, let's see. But of course, the Australian Open was like the moment when it really felt like Lehečka could be eyeing a top 20, top 10 debut, maybe even this year.
Yeah, I think he beat Felix Auger-Aliassime in that one,
Yeah.
and who's obviously had a bit of an off season. So yeah, okay. So we've done all the kind of preamble in terms of the last week, in terms of retirements and the event that was on in Winston-Salem. Now we're going to focus, if that's all right, Damon. We'll focus on the next 2 weeks. Of course, the final Grand Slam of the year. It's on the hard courts of Queens, New York. It's a really, really exciting event. I might ask you later on what your favourite slam is. I don't know if you've told people this before. I'm not aware of it. And of course, we will get predictions from you later, Damien. I think the best way to do this, to give a kind of comprehensive look at the ATP side of the US Open, is let's look at the draw, but let's look at the draw through splitting it into 4 from each quarter. So nicely segued into this one as well. We're just talking about Lehečka. Lehečka, of course, is playing against Karatsev, and he's in Holger Rune's quarter of the draw, the number 4 seed. And tell me, Damien, if you think I'm being a wee bit harsh, but Holger Rune has, for me, absolutely zero chance of seeding this into winning this event. He's not won a match since Wimbledon. There's been back problems, I think, as well. Holger Rune starts, of course, against Cabernet Buena. They've got a win on each record, I think, on clay, though. Just your thoughts on Holger Rune going into this one, number 4 in the world, number 4 seed. It's a tough draw for him, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely the weakest of the top 4 seeds, and the back injury and how he's done in the Toronto Cincy double is not helping. I think that, like, initially I thought maybe you were gonna say that he has zero chance to get to the semis, which definitely would have been too harsh to win the title. I kind of feel like everyone else but Alcaraz and Djokovic have zero chance, so I would have to agree. And yeah, it's a tough draw for him. Like Carballes Baena definitely isn't an opponent that if Rune is healthy, he's gonna get through. But Lehečka, then maybe someone like Shelton. I don't know if Shelton would get something going. These are already real threats, and in his looking forward into maybe the 4th round, you've got Tommy Paul in such good form, over the Canada Cincy double. So yeah, I don't feel like Rune is gonna go that far either, and yeah, just feel like he has had such a poor warm up season, and also with the health question marks and general fitness question marks that we've had towards Rune in slams as well. It was not that long ago at Roland Garros where he was still just really in trouble when he played the 5-setter against Cerundolo, and then just had nothing for Ruud. Obviously, Wimbledon was a little different, but then he was a bit outplayed by Alcaraz. But yeah, I just feel like it's not really going to be possible for him to win this slam. And there's a few reasons for that, and one of them is also the fact that playing someone like Karatsev, Lehečka in the 2nd round, that could get him in trouble very, very early.
Yeah, you're bang on. I think Lehečka or Karatsev could definitely pose him real problems. Also in this quarter is number 5 seed Casper Ruud. Of course, they two are on course to meet in the quarters once again, of course, in the French earlier on this year. Casper Ruud's another funny one, isn't he? I mean, effectively tanked Wimbledon, as we all know, just because he doesn't like grass. What's your thoughts on Casper? Of course, the finalist here last year. If he'd beaten Alcaraz, he would have been world number 1. And John and I have in the past have discussed Casper Ruud quite heavily. He kicks off tomorrow, as you can see on the screen. Thoughts on Casper Ruud and his chances?
Yeah, I think this quarter in general is one where we won't see the top 8 seeds in the quarters. With Rude, I don't know who it's gonna be. Someone even like JJ Wolf or Zhizhen Zhang, second round, could get him into trouble early. I think they're both pretty similar to me, like Wolf Zhang in terms of just having huge, powerful games, but kind of lacking shot selection. Last year, actually, Rude and Zhang were on track to meet in round two at the U.S. Open. And I remember thinking that Zhang is going to beat him. Zhang then wasted 7 match points in the opening round against Van Rijthoven.
Yeah.
And he's not in that sort of monster form anymore. So I'm not sure about that. But I think Wolf would already push him. Fucovic or Korda, that's really tough. And yeah, then if we get a match like Tiafoe Ruud in the fourth round, I would be definitely backing Francis. Just this could be vulnerable to change after we see the
Hmm.
first 3 rounds, but I don't think it would actually change. I know Ruud made the finals last year, but we all know that it wasn't that tough a run. He played a
Hmm.
great match against Berrettini for sure. I think he was also much closer to winning the final than people think. He had set points on Alcaraz in that third set, and Alcaraz was definitely the one who was not as fresh at that point. So I think potentially if Ruud wins one of these, he probably wins the match from there. So I know he was really close, but if he needs to play something like Wolf, then Korda, then Tiafoe, by the way, all Americans, like there's actually a real chance that Ruud would play 5 Americans in a row here with
Yeah.
Nava, Wolf, Korda, Tiafoe, Paul. Of course, this is just like a fun fact. It
Yeah.
actually
No, that's a good
doesn't
point
doesn't
though.
really mean anything, but it is very feasible. But yeah, I just don't think either Ruud or Rune are making the quarters, and in this section, I just think that they haven't done anything of note in the warm ups. Last year, of course, maybe Ruud also lost early in Cincinnati to Shelton. And yeah, I just feel like all the Grand Slam final runs from Casper Ruud, you cannot really say that they're accidental because, well, he's done it 3 times in the last 5 slams, right?
Yeah.
So, no,
Yeah.
6 slams. It's 3 times in the last 6 slams, but it was 3 out of 5 for a moment.
That's
So,
right.
so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
cannot
Right.
you cannot really say that it's by accident. But yeah, I just feel like if there's a redlining player with a higher peak, a higher ceiling, it's going to be hard for him to survive. So yeah, basically my thoughts on Ruud and Rune are that these are probably the top 8 seeds who are going, or actually along with someone else too, along with a couple of other guys too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like in this quarter we're probably going to see some other players in the last 8. I do have a couple of specific answers in mind as well.
Okay, well let's look at that then. We've got Marcus Giron versus Davidovich Fokina. That's a tasty one. Bublik versus Dominic Thiem, another a decent match. I like I penciled earlier on the Pedro Cashin, Ben Shelton. You mentioned Tommy Paul, Tiafoe, of course in that Sebastian Corda. So then this quarter then, who are you picking? Who are you thinking is going to be the final two from this one?
Paul and Tiafoe. And
Okay.
Paul has just done incredibly well during the Canada Cincy double. Obviously, beating Alcaraz once, then losing to him in a tight thriller. He made the semis at the Australian Open, and while that was perhaps not as strong a run as this one would be, I feel like he's actually more ready. And Tiafoe, obviously the semi-finalist from last year, also went 5 sets with Alcaraz. Good form this year, maybe a few losses like earlier than expected, but still, I feel like he has done well enough for me to consider him. And he seems like one of these guys who just at home in front of the home crowd here, he will be probably more dangerous than in most places as well. And I like his draw too. Like if he beats Manarino or Vatanuki in the third round, then it really opens up for him. And as I said, I would definitely back him against Ruud if that's the matchup that we're gonna get in the fourth round. And Tommy Paul, does he really have any opponents he should be scared of? Probably not, honestly. Like if someone fires up like Davidovich Fokina or Shelton, but they would actually have to get there first and
Yeah.
get just perform it at their best level during the
Yeah.
match against him. So yeah, I feel like Tiafoe, Paul. I haven't done the full like bracket predictions yet.
Right.
I might do that in maybe
Well, you
today,
can do that to keep you.
maybe
I do that to
tomorrow.
keep yourself up tonight. You can do that to try and keep yourself awake tonight.
Yeah, I will have some other like work to do after this, but if I still have time before going to bed, then I'll probably do that. But I can already tell you that Paul and Tiafoe are going to be my quarterfinalists here.
Yeah, decent. It's hard to disagree there. Just looking at it right now. In terms of Sebastian Korda, he's such, to me, quite an interesting character. He started off the year very well, and I thought he was going to have a big 2023. It was going to finally be the kind of emergence of Korda. He talked himself up at Wimbledon, went out early. He pulled out last week, as I mentioned earlier on. He's then here in the draw. What's your thoughts on players doing that in the events the week before, the big events? In terms of injury, of course, I'm not saying he wasn't injured, but the questions will be asked. And I just thought to get your kind of take on that, Damien, and thoughts on players and pulling out the week before slams.
Yeah, it's hard to say like how serious that ankle twist, ankle roll is. As you said, like Korda is ambitious enough, which we also saw, with him like just putting himself in there, right? Sort of
Yeah.
ahead of Wimbledon. He is so ambitious that I could see a world where he just skips Winston-Salem semis because he has already gotten a few matches out of that tournament and
Yeah.
just goes to the US Open. He definitely won't be delighted about having to play Fucsovics again. That match in Winston-Salem was very tight, just the first set tiebreak basically that decided it. So for me, he definitely has a shot here. If he beats Fucsovics, he probably makes the third round. Then he would play. Yeah, I mean, he's capable of beating Ruud as well. So it's just really Tiafoe that I would have him losing to probably. But just if he gets through that very tough opening round, that it opens up for him. But the fact that he beat Fucsovics in Winston-Salem does not necessarily mean that he's going to do that. And Ghosty, I am going to fill out that bracket. It's just I haven't done that yet. So
I think Ghost was trying to call you about poo-pooing Hurkacz's chances yet or something earlier on. But we'll come back to that once we cover there. So we're going for in the Rune quarter, the number fours quarter. We're going to go Tommy Paul and Tiafoe. Final question on this one would then be, in terms of Tiafoe, you've spoken up quite highly there. No concerns about recent form in the States. He's had some early losses.
Sorry, who are we talking about?
Tiafoe, just
Tiafoe.
The last question. Yeah, just in terms of you've spoken. I mean, he's had a kind draw, but he's had some early losses in the run-up events, and I just thought, in terms of where that faith is coming from.
Yeah, I get if that's something that will sort of stop you from believing in him here. But then again, he lost to Raonic, who still has like an incredible peak performance on his day. Wawrinka definitely in form right now, and even in Cincinnati, Tiafoe beat Griekspoor in round one, which obviously was just a nightmare draw as well. That's the sort of round ones that we can get from these ATP 1000 events. And as I said earlier, I think just the fact that I feel like at home he's actually going to perform. He's such an entertainer, and I feel like the huge crowds are probably going to make him what he was last year when he made the semis. Yeah. And I just don't think the form has been like poor. It's just been okay. It's been average.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously this one will be the one he's been looking forward to all year, especially after that semi-final run last year. Okay, moving swiftly on then. We'll go to the Medvedev quarter. And again, much like Holger Rune, when I saw that at 5 o'clock UK time on Thursday, I just thought to myself, Medvedev's in a bit of trouble here in terms of the matchups. I particularly looked at the De Minaur matchup, who seems to have his number recently. So just, let's talk about Daniil Medvedev. He's much talked about on this chat, especially when I'm on. What's going on with him and where can he go in this event?
Yeah, I mean, Medvedev Balázs is obviously not a match. I truly don't understand how the Hungarian still has the projected rankings. But there we can really wonder whether Medvedev loses 1 or 2 games or like something like that. But anyway, yeah, I think there's a couple of very tricky matchups here. Definitely Max Purcell, like that starts in the second round.
Pencil that as well.
Purcell, great form, Cincinnati and Winston-Salem quarterfinals. And like the main 2 things about Purcell, right, are serve and volleying and slices, both giving Medvedev a tough time in the past from other players. Serve and volleying with the returning position and slices with the forehand technique, just kind of impossible to accelerate out of it. So me thinking that Medvedev will probably win a few rounds is maybe more on like just the general level, the general quality that he has, and also just the feeling that he's always done well in New York, generally picks himself up for this event. So that's kind of why I just think he will go deep. I don't know if he's actually gonna go like into the semis, but I think a 4th round, a quarterfinal, that would already be fine. Would he lose to de Minaur again? It's very hard to say. It's definitely a matchup that's giving him trouble too. I think I can't really say for sure right now, but I think if I would I think if I do the bracket prediction later, I think I would have him losing in the quarters. But yeah, I still have him going pretty deep, even though on paper guys like Purcell, de Minaur, they're definitely tough for him.
And then you said losing in the quarters. Then I mean, like you say, Rublev's in this quarter. That's the predicted last 8 tie against his compatriot Andrei Rublev. What's your thoughts on where he's going then in terms of this event? You're already shaking your head, I think.
Yeah, and Ghosty is not going to believe what is coming, but I think it's not going to be Rublev. I think it's going to be Hubert Hurkacz. But yeah, starting from Rublev, I just see like his draw is incredibly tough. If you have to play Ruusuvuori, then let's say Monfils makes it, and then let's say Berrettini makes it to the 3rd round, and these are the guys that you have to beat in order to make the last 16 stage. Like that's just insane. Obviously, Rublev has not won a match in the warm-ups. Does that actually matter all that much with Rublev? I don't know. Like he's usually super consistent in terms of winning his early rounds, but then again, they were pretty tough draws, right? Like he played McDonald, and who did he play in Toronto? I have to check it now. It was McDonald in Toronto, and of course it was Ruusuvuori in Cincinnati. Yes, the other way around. So he basically plays Ruusuvuori again. They also faced each other at the Australian Open. He lost a set. It's been close against them. I feel like between each other. I feel like they're generally like somewhat similar in terms of like just being one-dimensional power baseliners. It could be tricky. Ruusuvuori, Monfils, Berrettini. I just think this is really tough, and there's no guarantee that Rublev will even make the 4th round from this.
No, so you've got Medvedev. Other kind of tasty ones. I mean, Medvedev's obviously going to be coming up against Baez in the 3rd round, which could be tricky. But in terms of you mentioned Hurkacz earlier on. So let's talk Hubie, shall we? Ghost, his favourite part of the show. Why have you got so much faith then in Hurkacz going to? I take it you're putting as Medvedev Hurkacz quarterfinal.
Yeah, Ghosties, I don't think he's really a fan of Hurkacz, but he just likes this meme that I constantly just bring my countrymen down, and I always say that they have no chance. And this is actually where I have to say that Hurkacz has a phenomenal draw. I don't know if he's going to take it. He is a bit of a close matches machine. If you have excellent serving stats, and if you have absolutely trash level returning stats, you're gonna be like a machine for close matches, tie breaks. So I don't know if he actually converts this opportunity, but I just think it lines up very nicely for him. Huesler out of form, Draper injury question marks, Isner retiring, and I think losing to Hurkacz in the 3rd round would be a beautiful send-off, actually, especially with them being friends. Like Kachanov, also injury question marks, hasn't played since Roland Garros. And then you potentially have like Rublev, Medvedev, and these are actually good matchups for him. Rublev, he has like a 2-2 record, I think, against, and Medvedev, he even leads 3-2. And one of the matches he lost, he was actually like the better player in, and almost beat him in either Canada or Cincy.
Yeah.
I think it's Cincy. And I just feel like this is really a phenomenal opportunity for Hurkacz. And also, he has been on a good run of form. Like Wimbledon to Cincinnati, he has been great. He only lost these 2 tight matches to Alcaraz, to Djokovic, obviously, at Wimbledon, and also had a loss to Michael Mmoh in Washington, which Mmoh, I think, is definitely quite tricky for him, with just the sheer like relentlessness of the ground and how tough it can be to just win a point against him in a baseline rally. But I think this is lined up phenomenally for Hurkacz. He also hasn't been past the second round in New York, which I guess
that's surprising.
One could view as worrying.
Yeah, that's a surprising stat, especially
it was actually the case at the Australian Open as well before this year, that he also wasn't past the second round, and then he made the 4th round. So maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, fair enough. Of course, Hurkacz next Miami champion, so that's why I just found that surprising. He seems to like the North American hard. So, okay, so you've got so far, as you can see on the screen, well timed. That's great work there by the producer. Just going to say, Tiafoe, Paul, Medvedev, Hurkacz. Anyone else could do a bit of damage in this half? We've got Nicholas Jarry. Who else we got that's jumping out? Berrettini, of course, unseeded. You mentioned him in the Rublev section earlier on. Berrettini, how far can he go then? He was a semi-finalist, I think, before, wasn't he?
Yeah, 2019, and he actually played Monfils in the quarterfinals, which was a great match. Theoretically, they could play here. Obviously, Berrettini is a factor here. Again, maybe John Isner has a wonderful run at the send-off. Like, I don't know if he's actually capable of this. His 2023 form would be like, with his 2023 form, it wouldn't even be that shocking to see him lose to Facundo Diaz Acosta. But I know that's not something that Isner would want as a send-off. But losing to Kachanov, losing to Hurkacz, I think he would be fine with that. But yeah, also in this top half of this section, there's Alex Michelsen. I think he could go on a run.
It'd be interesting to see him. Keen to see him.
Yeah, I think someone else earlier.
What about Hurkacz Isner? The potential for Hurkacz Isner is there, is it not?
Isner could play.
We could have Hurkacz Isner. That would be a
Hurkacz Isner round 3, and I think that would be the perfect send-off for Isner. He likes Hurkacz a lot, and they've played doubles together. So and also like Hurkacz is just at that sort of level where I think it would be a good enough opponent for Isner to lose to. Kachanov as well, but yeah, I feel like Isner Hurkacz round 3, also because it's a round further. That I would love to see that. To see Isner retire against him, I think that would be good.
And as you can see, Ghost is basically calling you out on the John Isner. I think he's saying something about senior citizen discount at Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, we'll move on to the big 2 then. We spoke off air earlier on, Damien, about Novak Djokovic's draw. I said, and you said you had some specific thoughts on this, so I'm going to be keen to hear them. I said to you before we came on air that this was pretty much a dream draw for Djokovic. That's a tongue twister. So yeah, thoughts on Djokovic, in terms of, the matchups that he's going to be coming up against to go for his 24th Grand Slam title.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful draw for him. Absolutely. It really couldn't be easier because, well, for starters, he plays Miller and then Zapata, Miralles or Queen, so he can basically sleepwalk through the first 2 rounds. I don't really see an opponent in the first 4 rounds for him that could be overly tough. He has a 0-2 head-to-head record against Vesely, but who knows if Vesely is even going to get there. And then also in his quarter, he could have had Tsitsipas, Ruud, Rublev, and Sinner, right? So I think the only real player that like he would have been afraid of in this group is Sinner, not because he has a poor matchup against him, but just because Sinner is stronger than these guys. But Also, he could have had Medvedev or Rune in his semi, right?
Yeah.
And he got the easier option. Also, Ruud is in his semi, like in his potential semi, and it's not like it's not Rublev, for example. So yeah, I just feel Rublev or Sinner. So I just feel like there's basically nothing that could have gone better for Djokovic in terms of the draw here.
Yeah.
Like if there's Djokovic fans, if there are Djokovic fans coming out like in the next week or so, or maybe let's say Djokovic loses at some point at this event, and the Djokovic fans will say that, I don't know, the draw was rigged and someone forced him to have a tough opponent early. Just don't bother with this, because no, it's not true. Like, this is actually a dream draw. This is actually something that is sort of swinging the chances of them winning the US Open title into his favor a little bit with Alcaraz, because, well, Alcaraz will have to play Zverev or Sinner in the quarters likely.
Yeah.
And Djokovic avoids that. So it's, then again, I also have to say that it's not like he needed it, right? He would have still been the massive favorite to come through, like, regardless of where he was placed in the draw. Even if we got him like the Rublev draw, or who else had it tough, let's say the section of Andrei Rublev, he still would have been the massive favorite to do it. So he didn't need it, but it is a wonderful draw.
Yeah, no, I mean, he won't face a seed potentially until Laszlo Djere in round 3. I think they met once, and it was in Belgrade, the All-Serbian encounter. He likes that matchup. I think he likes the Taylor Fritz matchup as well. It's a good one for his game. I don't see anything. I'm looking at it now, Damien, and I'm trying to think of some sort of way that I could sell you that this might be a problem, or he or she might be a problem. But
actually, John had this comment. John had this comment. The only match that made trouble Novak, and I'm not sure what he was talking about. Was it something on the screen?
Right.
Okay.
He's being witty.
I get it. Okay.
One of the key ones that I wanted to touch on in terms of the draw, instead of just focusing on Djokovic. Are you still laughing at John's joke?
Yeah.
Tsitsipas Raonic. I thought that was one that kind of caught my eye on Thursday as well. Tsitsipas been a little bit indifferent recently. Raonic has got a 2-0 record over him. Granted, they haven't played in 3 years, but one was at the Aussie Open and one was in Cincinnati. Not too dissimilar. Is Tsitsipas in trouble here? Do you favour Raonic at all in that one?
Yeah, I think so. And also, this whole quarter is like a big serving extravaganza or whatever. And Raonic, then let's say he plays either Stricker or Popyrin, really, and then either Alice or Eubanks. Eubanks, of course, beat him at Wimbledon. And as you said, Raonic 2-0 record, even though it was 2020 when Raonic had a bit of a resurgence. Then potentially Fritz or Jakub Mensik, maybe, or Lorenzo Musetti. Even, like, I think Tsitsipas has a very tough draw here, and obviously his form in the warm-ups also wasn't great, so that's not a good combination. And Raonic, I just feel like at this stage of his career, he has like a higher chance of peaking for one match than actually, I don't know, winning 5 of them and playing at a solid level but not reaching that peak. So I'm super excited for Tsitsipas Raonic. And that's like an obvious highlight of the round that we will be very disappointed about if it's like, straight sets Tsitsipas. I don't think this is really a possibility unless Raonic would play like he did against McDonald in what I think was his most recent match.
Yeah, he lost that one in straight sets, didn't he? I can't disagree. I think Tsitsipas will be gone early. I think I was going through the US Open Twitter page, and it's the fan week this week, and I saw Tsitsidosa on stage doing some sort of like Mr. and Mrs. quiz. Needless to say, I did not click on that video and take it in, but Badosa pulling out, and I think I think you're right. I think Tsitsipas will be heading home early as well. Felix had a decent win, I think, over Berrettini, but then went out the next round. Was that in to Montreal earlier? Felix Auger-Aliassime, I touched on him very, very early. He's had a really, really poor year. Any hopes for him at all, Damien?
No, he has to win a few matches to even get to Djokovic. McDonald already, that's a 50-50 for me. If he is going to play Goyo, and that's probably the case, because, well, Goyo is surely beating Delian with Delian's hardcourt records, I think, then also, I don't think it would be easy. Goyo has actually gotten his backhand to where it might be better than Auger-Aliassime's, and even though it's a weakness of his. And Franz Cerundolo also has been a tough matchup for Auger-Aliassime, right? If it's the Argentinian in the third round, which looks kind of likely unless he has a terrible off day against someone. So yeah, I just feel like even if he plays Novak, it's already gonna be a big deal for him, and it's probably gonna be big enough that he gets there kind of tired, and yeah, he just doesn't really have that much left to really trouble Novak, which hasn't really been happening for him anyway, outside of indoors, right? When did they play? Because he beat him at Laver Cup, but of course that's a very different thing.
Absolutely. Will we do that then?
Just Rome. Okay, so they haven't actually faced each other on an outdoor hardcourt yet, but I just don't feel like it would be a good matchup for the Canadian, just with how many exposable weaknesses he has, and also just Djokovic being so good against these forehand bots Rublev, Tsitsipas. He just totally works them out slowly, and I just don't feel like it would be troubling.
No, I think that's the key. He's just so adaptable to whatever they try and throw him, whatever new tactic. These guys have played him so many times. They try and mix it up, do something different, and he adapts very, very quickly. And that's why he has won so much. Okay, this will probably be one of your maybe harder ones then. In terms of this, one's a given: Djokovic and who for the final 8 then.
Could be anyone, really.
Yeah, it's wide open.
Yeah, let's say Fritz then, I guess. He hasn't done well at the slams, but I just can't really say, whether Raonic or Streaker maybe could reach that. Even Eubanks, honestly, could reach that. Decent... Yeah, I know. A good couple of weeks for sure. Cincinnati quarterfinals and UMAC title. I just feel like I kind of have to go Fritz. I feel like Mensik, if he beats Barrère, he actually has a great shot at beating Lorenzo Musetti. So I cannot really pick Musetti. Yeah, let's just go Fritz. But it's the least confident pick that I've made so far.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so he goes Djokovic, Fritz for the third quarter final, and then finally, okay, so Carlitos Alcaraz looking to defend his US Open title from last year, 12 months ago. Starts off against Dominic Kopfer. Thoughts on his draw in terms of who he could potentially face. Of course, you touched on Sinner, which I think he would have been the main one he was wanting to avoid before getting to the final. He could face Lloyd Harris, Dan Evans, Cam Norrie projected, Yannick Sinner, Medvedev, which would be fairly simple for him, surely, and then it would be Djokovic. So how happy can the Carlitos team be with that draw then, Damien? Sorry.
I think it's okay. I just think there's this one problem round with Sinner Zverev in the quarters. Assuming that's going to be Sinner, but of course Zverev also picking up his form very nicely. In general, I think there are a couple of tricky opponents, like Koepfer, definitely. Thompson, he has just struggled against in the warm-ups. One of players in the fourth round, if he plays Griekspoor, Fields, Kokinakis, these are all guys who can push him. I just don't think in the best of 5 format they really have a great chance of beating Alcaraz. One set. Because in Canada and Cincy, he was definitely struggling quite a lot. It wasn't his 100% best tennis. Mm-hmm. There was just a lot of sort of screwing around. I don't know, and I just feel like if one of these guys play him and he has a weaker set, he has a weaker patch, just losing just one is just not that much of a difference in the best of 5 format, because you still have so much time to recover, and I feel like that's going to play into Alcaraz's favor a lot. I don't know if maybe by the time he makes the final, it's actually going to be something that hurts him, because, well, he would then have to face Djokovic, who's likely going to be less tired. And again, of course, he's also like 16 years younger. But yeah, I just feel like
That's a
whatever,
major factor.
yeah. So like whatever really comes his way before the quarters, I feel like he should be able to sort it out, even if he drops sets. In the quarters, I'm not that sure anymore. And yeah, that's definitely the problem round. And this is how we can also say that Alcaraz's draw is weak, is worse than Djokovic's, because he has Zverev or Sinner in his quarter. And I think potentially, like, out of all the players, like 5-8 ranked, so or 5-8 seeded, and also 9-16 seeded, these are probably the toughest opponents. Like maybe along with Tommy Paul, because Alcaraz would not like Tommy Paul in his section either.
I think you're bang on there. I think Tommy Paul would have been one he was keen to avoid, given the recent history. Zverev, I think, it's a funny one for me. You know, in terms of his form's been a little bit up and down since the injury. You know, I watched him against Davidovich Fokina in Canada, and he was rotten. He was all over the place. And then, you know, the next week in Cincinnati, he takes out Medvedev finally. You know, in terms of Zverev, are people overlooking Zverev at this event?
I feel like a lot of people are saying that like the Sinner Zverev could be one of the more tricky round fours. Also, just saying that Zverev or Sinner will be in the quarters with Alcaraz potentially, but maybe yes, because, well, he still hasn't maybe performed. He has made an ATP 1000 semi this year, of course, in Cincinnati, but he still hasn't like won a big title or like made a big final this year. I guess hasn't had that win over Alcaraz or Djokovic. Of course, he hasn't really played them either, but or just once against Alcaraz. But I think there is something to it also because of how exciting the Alcaraz Sinner matchup is for people, and like everyone remembering their US Open quarterfinal from last year. So I think a lot of fans just want that to happen again, and then they're kind of overlooking the fact that Zverev is a danger to Sinner.
Yeah, you're right. So I've got a wee, and this isn't about my predictions, this is about yours, but I just think Zverev could do something here. In terms of, we've had a request. Hello, Ashley, by the way, and Anastasia's joined us, Ghost as well. Okay, my guy, Andy Murray, he's playing, there we go, Elena. That was perfectly timed again. So yeah, Sir Andy, playing Corentin Moutet, and should be a lively one. You know, Andy Murray again. I've been, as a true Andy Murray fan, been encouraged with some of the displays. Obviously disappointed. He had to pull out of Canada with Sinner coming up, and then I didn't think he was going to play Cincinnati as it transpired. Andy Murray, can he do anything? Please tell me, Damien, that you have hope for Andy.
Getting through Dimitrov and Zverev back to back seems way too optimistic for me. But yeah, Moutet, of course, he's the favorite there, provided he's going to be healthy, because he was also withdrawing from some events. Dimitrov just has been so consistent this year, right? Like he's just not losing to anyone he shouldn't be losing to. If they actually play each other, you know, it's also like a vintage matchup. Would love to see it. But yeah, just Dimitrov and Zverev back to backs in order to make the second week. That's something that I'm not really buying right now.
God, you broke my heart. Who else we got here? Greg Spore, Arthur Fields, Dan Evans is in it. Jordan Thompson, you mentioned earlier on, Dimitrov, Andy Murray, Wawrinka, Sonego, and of course Sinner. So I take it we're going to just go with Alcaraz, Sinner as your top two.
Yeah, I could think of picking Zverev, but I don't think I can really do it. I think when I'm gonna do the bracket prediction, it's still gonna be Sinner. The sort of boring answer, but also it's not really that boring because, as I said, everyone wants to see Alcaraz Sinner. So
yeah, especially after last year in New York. Okay, so we've done the draw. We've kind of handpicked some of the matches that we're excited about, and you've given us your last 8. Just before we go and look at the final that we all think we're going to get, I just wanted to mention and get your opinion, Damien. You've been kind of heavily looking at the qualifiers this week. Of course, we do Talking Tennis. We do a Player of the Week in honour of our friend Jakub Bobro, who recently sadly passed away. So what we thought we would do is this week, the qualifier who has qualified for the US Open, we'll make that player the Player of the Week, the Jakub Bobro Player of the Week. So yeah, take it away, Damien. In terms of the qualifiers, who's been your standout guy?
yeah, I think we have to just give it to Jakub Mensik. You've got him on the screen right now, of course. I know Jakub would have loved that pick. Obviously, is someone we've discussed on our Challenger show plenty of times. And Mensik will actually turn 18 on Friday. So if he is in that third round at the US Open and playing Fritz, that would have been that would be the best birthday he could probably imagine. Yeah, he was actually in a pretty tough section here, making his Grand Slam qualifying debut. He had to play Fognini in the first round and Leandro Ridi in the second round, and beat both guys in 3 sets. Fognini he had lost to in Zug last month, and even against Zdenek Kolář in the final round, which was definitely like when it got a bit easier for him. But I think he showed a lot of maturity to get over the finish line and like have no issues in that match against his fellow, against his compatriot. And yeah, Mensik just has insane talent, and I think in a couple of I don't know, maybe as early as next year, he's going to push it into the top 100. Probably not someone that we're going to be watching in Grand Slam qualifying quite a lot. Definitely encourage people to check out his match against Barrère, either against Barrère at the US Open round 1, which I hope he's going to win, because I would really love to see him play Musetti in the second round. I feel like that will also be a pretty decent matchup. At 17, he's already won a challenger title in Prague this year. Also, when he was 16, he made the Australian Open Juniors final. This was actually a very well-known story because he was cramping to a point where he couldn't even attend the trophy ceremony. They had to take him off the wheelchair. Yeah, he played Kuzuhara and lost that match, but you could see that he has so much more potential going forward in the pros. And Kuzuhara, of course, still is like around 500 in the world, and Mensik has made an enormous jump since. And yeah, I feel like this is a very fitting match, Player of the Week, because he is definitely the most exciting story coming out of US Open qualies. And also at the same time, I know Jakub was very fond of him as well, so I think that works perfectly.
No, nice sentiment there. And for anyone who wasn't aware of Jakub Mensik, then keep your eye out over the next few days for him. Any other business a little bit in terms of the US Open? Having a look there at the draw, the US Open said that the IBM, have you seen this? The IBM AI had done the draw analysis and picked who had the most favourable draw. Are you aware of that top 5?
I saw it. I
don't know what it means. I don't know what it means, but
yeah, me neither. I haven't really gone through like how they actually did these calculations, or like how the algorithm did it. But having Coco Gauff at number 1,
yeah,
I guess at least there's some legitimacy to it, because Djokovic is number 1.
Yeah.
And so Alcaraz is actually number 2. So
yeah. So yeah, as you can see there, guys, what me and Damien are speaking about is the US Open got the AI, the robots, to tell us who they thought had the most favourable draw, and they went with Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, Daniil Medvedev. I thought was a shock number 4 for me, and then Francis Tiafoe, as Damien said earlier on. Other than that, in terms of the first couple of days, then tomorrow is lining up, tomorrow's schedule. Is there any match in particular you think, if anyone wasn't thinking of watching this match, what match should they be putting on their telly tomorrow, Damien?
Yeah, the obvious answer, unless I'm messing up the draw, so let me check that. But the obvious answer, I think, is Tsitsipas Raonic, right?
That's tomorrow. Yeah,
that's the
that's in the
half of
Louis
the draw.
Armstrong. Yeah.
Yeah, like out of like maybe more underrated picks. I'm certainly excited, like in the first time slot for Manarino Tanuki, especially if the Japanese, is going to be healthy, because he recently gave a walkover in Stanford in the semis to get to just try to be ready for the US Open qualies. Wolf Zhang, I sort of maybe hinted at when I was talking about Ruud, as a match that potentially could be huge if both guys are just come out firing. Mensik, whom we just talked about, playing Barrera, I think that's also something that a lot of people should probably watch. Fucsovics Korda, we also hinted at this as potentially being very tight despite their Winston-Salem match going just 2 sets. Also, maybe that's a bit of a weird pick, but I'm excited to see if Steve Johnson can keep it any close against Taylor Fritz. I kind of feel sorry for him, because he recently won 2 challenger titles, and he did so well to get himself into this draw, because he won the US Open USTA Wildcard Challenge. And yet then, of course, he lands against Taylor Fritz. And even though there is some fire in the serve and forehand combo again, I just feel like this might be too tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see if he does anything in this match.
Yeah, no, I agree. And tomorrow, of course, the US Open have confirmed it as they confirmed a couple of days ago. It's the top half of the women's draw, bottom half of the men's, and then Tuesday will just be reversed, bottom half of the women's and top half of the men's. Anything else you want to add before we chuck it for the evening and try and stay up so that our body clocks are reworked for the next 2 weeks? Anything else, Damien?
Just maybe one question, Djokovic or Alcaraz?
Oh God, yeah, we missed the big one. Yeah, so of course, Djokovic and Alcaraz. Okay, so I did have that down on I went a bit early. So yeah, Djokovic, Alcaraz. Of course, we saw the epic a week ago in Cincinnati. Alcaraz came through in grass and Wimbledon. Has the draw changed your opinion of who will win this US Open if these two, which is likely, get to the final?
It gives a slight edge to Djokovic, I think. If someone is going to be arguing that it's 52-48 Djokovic now, I can't really disagree. I feel like there's just a pretty decent chance that Alcaraz is going to arrive in the finals a bit more tired, which again, with the age difference, maybe won't matter that much. But we saw what happened last year when he played 24 hours to win the US Open title. I don't think he would be able to pull it off against Djokovic. He was able to pull it off against Ruud in the final. I just don't think he would do it here. However, I think I still, if I had to lean towards one player, I would go Alcaraz. One reason is not scientific at all. Let's start with the scientific one. It's just that I think in recent matches, Djokovic has had a lot of physical problems when it gets tight. I think in the longer format, he might actually be the one to struggle, because any cramps that Alcaraz had against him just seemed nervous, which also isn't a great thing, of course, for him. But the dips that he had in the Cincinnati final or Wimbledon, I think there would be punished here. Also, the one that's non-scientific is just it really reminds me of 2013 on the women's side, when Azarenka and Serena played in the final at Cincinnati. Azarenka won a beautiful thriller. Then they were both heavily favored to just make the final again at the US Open. Azarenka had some sets lost along the way. Serena just had score lines that Iga Świątek has every day on the way to the title. Of course, back in the day, Serena used to be the original one with the bagels and breadsticks. And then in the final, it was actually Serena winning, so not the player that won Cincinnati. And because of that non-scientific reason, I feel if they play twice, it's likely that they actually split the meetings.
Yeah. No, I think it's very tight. I think you're right. I think Alcaraz will obviously prefer the conditions. Everything was really hot in Cincinnati. The New York, and Djokovic has had such a kind of up and down record in New York in terms of so many things seem to go wrong for him. And yeah, I think it's just going to be fascinating couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really going to thank you, Damien, for taking us through this next hour. It's been really, really in depth and interesting. and I think you've changed my mind and a few others as well. So thank you very much for that. This US Open, the Grand Slam, this Grand Slam actually is since the big three came to the tour, this one has experienced the longest drought without one of them winning it, and that was in 2019 when Rafa Nadal won it. And will that be ended by Novak Djokovic? We don't know, but I'm sure it's going to be fun to find out. So listen, Damien, thanks very much, mate. It's been a good evening, and I'm sure we'll catch up over the next fortnight. Okay, top man. Thanks very much.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.